Hi, I'm Grace Bryant with Be Whole, Be Happy, helping you be whole and happy in your relationships, intimacy, and life. In this video, we'll talk about the balance of yin and yang, and specifically the yang side of things. So in the Eastern traditions, the balance of yin and yang is something that's really highlighted, polarity, or how we can be able to be in the flow, able to be present with what is, and jump to the yin side, which is a more receptive state, or jump into the yang side, which is a more active state at any moment. Life is constantly throwing things at us that are beyond our control. And I would go as far as saying that every external circumstance is beyond our control. So any control we think we have of what life is going to throw at us, what traffic is like this morning, the lifespan of our loved ones, what we can find at the grocery store, any control we think we have over these things is illusory. But usually we live in a world where we repeat the same things day after day after day, and so we become accustomed to the same outcomes. When I go to the store, I find this thing. When I come home, I find my partner at home or my kids at home. This isn't going to change, right? This is how we suffer, is we think things are going to stay the same forever. We think that we're going to do the same thing and life is going to give us the same outcome. But as I'm sure you know, that's not actually true. There's nothing that we can control except our own response to life. We think we can control a lot of things, and this becomes very exhausting when we're trying to hold everything in together, when we're trying to really control the stability and security and safety in our life. And if you're a person who often feels tired, this might be one of the mechanisms of that, because it is exhausting to try to hold it all together. It's exhausting to be in control all the time. Now, this doesn't mean that we become a jellyfish and let life just happen to us. This means that we can actually let go of our mechanisms of control, but still act in the world. In the Eastern traditions, we call this doing without doing, or action in inaction. And this means we find a balance point. We find the flow of yin and yang, being in the flow. And this is a state that exists constantly behind all of our thinking mind, behind all of our doing. You can call it the background of consciousness or the background of awareness. And when we're in a yang state, when we're in an active state, so when we're doing anything, actively doing anything, which is how most of us in the 21st century world live our lives, that we are constantly doing and constantly producing and constantly creating. We can actually do this from the state of being. So there's a pivotal difference between being yang, which I like to liken with being empowered, and being in control or being controlling. So the difference between being yang, being empowered, and being controlling. We can cultivate mechanisms to become empowered in our life. And you can think of being empowered like being a martial artist. If you've ever met a martial arts master, or even a yoga master, a Tai Chi master, there's someone who has this verticality, has this presence, has this awareness, and the ability to jump at any moment. And if they're a martial arts master, they have the ability to fight. They have the ability to be violent. But this is something that they would never use unless the moment calls for it. So they are fully alert, fully empowered, and yet they only choose to act when the moment demands that. On the other side of that, being controlling or being too yang, being too active, being controlled by our own mechanisms of control, often leads us into a state of stress and anxiety and panic because we think we have to do and do and do and do all the time. Or we think we have to control the outcomes. And this is where a high percentage of our suffering and our stress comes from, is in controlling the outcomes. A balance of being yin and being yang, so riding that state of being in the flow, means that we can be prepared and active and alert in our life. We can do the absolute best. We can prepare ourselves to show up as best we can, as the most empowered human, and then let go of whatever life throws at us. So I show up to work today. I got up early, I did my meditation, I had a shower, and then I sat in traffic, and then I got to work and I had my cup of coffee or I had my smoothie, and then my boss calls me into the office and everything goes to hell. I showed up as best I could for that. And now I can let life happen. And now I can respond instead of react. And this is also a big difference, is that when we're trying to control, we're usually in a place of reactivity. When we need to have things look a particular way, then we have a lot of unconscious programming and unconscious mechanisms that's trying to manipulate the situation for power. And maybe you're saying, well, that's not me. I'm not trying to manipulate a situation for power. No, from your conscious mind, you're probably not. But I can tell you from my personal experience, as I understand this balance of yin and yang more, the ability to really show up with what is and let go of the outcome. I spent a good 35 years of my life in most situations trying to subconsciously manipulate the situation or the people around me so that I could get what I want. And when we're living from the mind or the ego, we're always trying to get what we want. We're always trying to move into pleasure and away from pain. We're always trying to stay in our comfort zone and avoid discomfort. Being yang, being fully empowered in a balanced way, means that we start to expand that comfort zone. We start to be okay with being in our discomfort. We start to be in the present moment with what it is in a wider and wider sense. We start to really consciously choose how we want to show up to every situation and let go of the outcome so that we can respond instead of react to whatever life throws at us. I like to think of the analogy of the boat. We're on a sailboat, and particularly a sailboat. We can steer, we can really learn how to be an amazing sailor and not try to control the wind or the tides. Trying to control the wind and the tides is exhausting. So when we let go of those external circumstances and we control what we can, and we get really good at living life, we get really practiced at that thing we're trying to accomplish, then we can just be in the flow. And there's a state of ease and a state of freedom and a state of presence in that. And people will notice that shift in you. People will notice that there's something different. There's a feeling of being refreshed. There's a feeling of being really connected instead of those quiet patterns of unconscious manipulation that most of us live through. May you find ways to create this state of balance, this state of the edge of yin and yang, so that you can jump over to that active yang side whenever you need, and you can also jump off and surrender in every moment. Namaste.